Hola, manos. Welcome to our ipsicafé scoping series, where we take an idea and scope it live in real time, 1 hour at a time. My name's Alejandra. I'm a strategist and community organizer, and we also have...
I am Lizzie, a project strategist and a systems thinker.
The first idea we are scoping under this series is creating a blueprint that allows us to intentionally build and interweave our networks so we can strengthen our communities and more effectively translate people power into structural change-making power.
Yeah, and we want to give a quick recap of what we have done so far in 8 episodes based on the purpose of the project that Alejandro just mentioned. We saw it as a system, and we started general brainstorming with a bubbles method that we use. And this is a free flow of ideas to bring to the surface all the elements that we think or that we know may be part of that system. And each bubble represents an idea, an element. And then we use a 5W and H to help us ask questions: what, who, where, when, why, and how. Because the more questions, the more ideas. We categorize them based on certain common characteristics. We interconnected all the elements because this is key for systems. And we started last week building a work breakdown structure, WBS, which is a core element for scoping a project. And this WBS was informed or a product of the brainstorming and categorization process.
Cool. Thank you for that little recap, Lizzie. Without anything else, let's get to scoping. So as we always do, I will note our starting time as 8:02 local time in the Netherlands on the top left corner. I like doing this to make sure that we accurately track our time and the details of our progress. It is 9 June, let's say 2003. All right. So last time, part of what we're doing with the work breakdown structure is, as the name indicates, we're breaking down the work and trying to structure it in a way that makes sense. We want to go from the overall goal of this project, which is what we have at the very top of the structure, and we want to break it down into eventually we get to task level work. So because creating a blueprint seems like a huge endeavor, we need to be able to break that down into smaller pieces so we eventually can, maybe start a document or interview a certain person, very specific concrete tasks that we can then carry out. Obviously, this information that we have from the bubbles isn't complete. So part of what we're doing is, with the information that we have, is trying to organize it in essentially identifying dependencies. So where we're going to start and what things can flow from there. For example, we were able to work on blueprint development, which is the orange category, and humans, which is the yellow category, and figure that the way we organize it with the arrows is kind of the flow of the work. So blueprint development refers to this project that we're planning right now, so the development of this blueprint. And one of the first steps that we're going to take once we're done with this process, which we call the scoping process, is, as good project managers that we are, is that we're going to create a project plan. That includes the 10 areas of knowledge, which are outlined by PMI, the Project Management Institute, and it allows us to look at the different aspects of a project and ensure that we're thinking through all the different things. And then we also want to look at what others have done in terms of something related. We know that this isn't a particularly novel concept, but one of the things we want to explore is how how others have done this, how specifically they're doing it, and then identify what exactly the problem or problems might be in creating something that can be widespread and widely applied in order to have a multiplier effect. So that's part of kind of what we're encompassing with the orange category on the left-hand side. And then we got into the yellow category, which we titled humans. And these are, because Lizzie and I don't know everything, in fact, we know very little, we acknowledge that there are going to be other people that we're going to have to interview, talk to, read their work. So we decided that we were going to start with our existing networks and be able to, from there, identify who the most knowledgeable people are related to this matter, people who are already doing this, perhaps community organizers, change makers, and then other people that work in and around the organizing space. For example, academics, people in policy, and other roles like that. Is there anything you want to add at this point, Lizzie?
No, I think that you nailed all the elements and all the categories. So I think we're ready to continue with the WBS then.
Cool. So we're going to look at the other categories, and this might require a bit of silence as we think through exactly how to think of this as, or like structure this in terms of the work needed. So feel free to speak up if anything comes to mind, Lizzie.
Will do.
I'll be right back. All right. So I think the area, the green area, is one where it might not be, if we're thinking about work, I'm not sure that the green area is a particular work category, if that makes sense. In the sense that I think we should consider all of these areas, but I think it might feed into both the yellow work and perhaps blue, perhaps gray. But I don't know that in and of itself, it's it could be like a research type category.
Yeah, I was going to say that it would be also like in the blueprint development in the orange when we are saying how are they doing it, and if we have several communities that we are considering, or one, or or many, we can say, okay, let's say that is about identity, right? So then you could use the questions, or it could be like a line of, okay, we are going to see what have others done, how are they doing it in the area of identity, right? Or who are they in our local community that is gathering as a identity community or as a disability community or any affinity. So yeah, you're right. It is more like the list of potential communities and this is not exhaustive, right? I mean, could be more. But this is just like, okay, if we are thinking of a community based on religion, we can find all those for the research, as you mentioned.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of if we're, because we're trying to move towards yeah, essentially like the objectives of this project. Usually the way Lizzie and I work, or have worked in the last couple of years, is once we have this category level, where we have like the colors and the titles, these end up being specific objectives that we define for to achieve the broader project goal. So when I'm thinking about this second level with in that with that lens of it becoming an objective, I don't really see us having an objective that is specifically of areas of interest or like points of gather or communities. I do, as exactly as you say, think of it as the we need to keep these communities, and not specifically the ones we have listed in there, but the idea that there are different communities, different ways that people organize. We need to keep that in mind when we're looking at the different other elements that we've identified. For example, when we have on the orange side what others have done, we can look at, in order to narrow down the research, we can look at what have others done in different religions, what have others done in different cultures, what have others done in different around different areas of interest in different locations. So I'm not, how do you think we can visualize that? Do you think, I think in a way it should be off of the work breakdown structure as a primary color, like on this second level?
Well, it depends, because one thing could be, it is not just, okay, let's find out about, I'm going to continue with identity, right? But when you have all these different, because the WBS is give us like lower levels until we get what are we doing, like you said, what work we will be doing. So probably there will be either processes or specific research depending on those communities. Maybe you want to do some community engagement to do your blueprint, and in part, and so this will be tied to the humans category. Like, it is not the same how you are going to approach a community of disability or a community of identity, right? You would have like different processes. So it is and
Yeah,
because we
no,
are
I completely agree. I just think it might be, yeah, maybe like yellow and green can come together. That's more what I mean. Because we're
yeah.
here, like in yellow, for example, we're looking at our existing networks, most knowledgeable people, who is already doing this. And every single element in yellow, I want to make sure that we're looking at as broad as many different communities as we can in order to get a very broad and nuanced picture.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, I'm seeing it as part of, yeah, of that research that will be part of essentially yellow. And this is usually how we start going from the draft WBS to a more concrete version. There's a lot of sometimes combining of areas, creating new areas out of existing ones. So yeah, because I feel like these yellow and green, and to some degree gray, can be part. can be part of like research, essentially.
Right.
What do you
But
think?
it's also, and as you mentioned at the very beginning, it is also part of this contextual analysis for the blue and the group dynamics, because all that changes depending on the community type, right?
But the
So
blue is the output. So
it's the
yes,
output,
the
but
green
as the
will always be a part of that. Yeah.
right, right. So that's that I want to clarify that. How do we um, ensure? Yeah, I see it a little bit.
Because I think blue, like the blueprint output is, it might just be a group that is coming together around, that's organized around, I don't know, a video
Identity.
game. No, a video game interest.
Okay,
And they
okay.
want to organize for a particular reason. I don't think they need to consider all of the ways people in different geographies organize and in work industry sectors organize and religion. Like, that doesn't have to be part of the application of the blueprint. um I think in a way it's good to have some sort of way that allows people to broaden the perspective and
Mm-hmm.
cast a wider net. But I don't think that needs to be a necessary part of organizing, because we're both the two verbs that we have at the top. We want to build and interweave. It could be we're just building a network, and it could be very focused, and it could be very local, and it could be just around one thing. Not everyone can organize around all of these different things, considering all of these different areas. So yeah, I don't know.
Right, but there could be always like a Venn diagram where there are intersections between two different communities. You mentioned video games, and yeah, probably, oh, you say, well, there's nothing about these communities that, might be interested because this is just video games. But if there's an understanding of the communities around, maybe disabilities, that community of video games can incorporate something, that there could be like a positive back and forth between two different communities that
Oh,
relate. So
absolutely. And I think
that's what I was trying.
I think that's where we get into the interweaving part. And I do think that's important.
Right.
And I do think that's possible uh and even desired, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary as a starting point, because otherwise it becomes really overwhelming. If you
Right.
just want to organize in like a small group in your neighborhood, and someone's like, well, you need to think about all the religions and all the locations and all the identities and all, like, that might just be too high of a bar to start with. So I think we need to think
Mhm.
about how this can be open a door without it necessarily creating too high of a barrier to clear.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so definitely it is intrinsic in the orange and the blue and the yellow. And as you said, the barriers as well, because there are going to be inputs that we are going to use for both, for the development and for the discussions and the research with the people that are going to help create the blueprint.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually go ahead and move um, some of this around a little bit, because maybe not right now, but perhaps later there could be some combination. Ah, I went off the screen. Okay, but in thinking about green as it is, can you see a way to structure it beyond how it's structured already? So, like, how do you see the work of green? Because maybe I'm misinterpreting, but I get the feeling that you do want to keep it as a category within the work
No,
breakdown
no, no.
structure.
We definitely can put in like a portion of both. You know what? I was even thinking like, in the organizational, this is not like a WBS works, but the idea or how I see it is like, in the organizational, when you have like like an org, or, like an org chart, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
you have the top leader, and then you have second line leaders, but then you have like staff, like it's like covering everything. So that's how I kind of see it, right? So it's supporting those two. Maybe I would pick it up. I don't know, like put it like that big bubble underneath the orange and underneath the yellow. But again, I think it would be more supporting processes and research.
How do you feel about perhaps something like this?
Tell me more.
Well, because when we're thinking about these three areas, I feel like we're like, yes, green and gray will in some way also be a part of the output in terms of considering communities and considering barriers.
Mm-hmm.
However, I feel like a lot of it is going to be in part of this process is in having a analyzing the context and being able to truly understand the people that are working in the space, the areas in which they're working, and the barriers they face, not only within their work, but in order to make blueprints like this um, accessible and applicable to broad groups of people.
Yeah, it makes sense. I like the idea. And this is what Alejandro is just showing is like how we create like the first draft, and now we are critically thinking, we are asking questions. Well, okay, we had these green bubbles, what do they make sense there, can we move them here? Something that we have repeated time after time, this has to make sense to you, to the project professional, to the people that are working in the team. It has to make sense. um, not to me, not to Alejandra. It has to make sense to your projects. And in this moment, so Alejandra is bringing that potential, like, okay, we have a contextual analysis here that we will help us to create to develop the blueprint. And in that contextual analysis, we have the people, the experts that have done this before, different communities that have done this before, because the thing is that we want to understand, to have a good output, a good blue. I think we have to understand as much as possible how those different communities gather and interact, because I think I definitely want to keep it as a separate color, um, because it will inform. It will give us good information of how people, let's say, youth doing video games, or people creating a pickleball club, or people creating a book club, a community for a book club. So if we understand all these elements, it will help us to provide more direction in the operational reality. And it's not necessarily that the youth that are creating the video games need to do that, but it is there, because we want to have a blueprint output that encompasses as much as possible as information. I'm not saying that we're going to put a blueprint for every type of community, but that as much as possible, we can put the things that come on the surface when we are evaluating that, when we doing that analysis.
Yeah, because part of what we're trying to research and really understand is there the reality exists that people are currently organized and organizing and have historically for as long as humans have existed, have organized um, in one way or another. This is how we've created all sorts of groups. This is how we've created governments. This is how we've created countries and all sorts of societies throughout time. I think part of what we're trying to see if we can better understand through this process is how can, for example, this youth group organizing around their affinity for X video game, how can that community interweave itself with other existing communities in order to translate that power and be able to connect their power in a way that allows them to affect change in whatever community they have in common. So what would you say the work would be under green? Because we talked about yellow, we're going to look at our existing networks and essentially identify all of those elements under. What would you think could be the work under green?
I think it will be tied to the work under yellow, but with more precision, like certain things that I don't want to mention requirements because the community, well, even though communities could have requirements, but it would be what are like the minimum things that we discovered that should be.
But think about us doing the work. Like, what are we
For,
doing? Like, this is our work breakdown structure for our project of creating this blueprint. So what work are we doing that I could add? Do you think like research?
I think it would be understanding how they gather and what are their minimum. I have a word that is not coming. It always comes requirements, but it's not requirement. Like and I know that we don't like the rules of engagement, but what are the minimum parameters that they have for those communities?
Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so it is part of the research, a part of what we're doing in orange and yellow, but it's keeping an eye on the different communities. Well, let's say the religion groups. How are they functioning? Where are they functioning? Why are they functioning that way?
So kind of the practicalities of
yes, it is a closed environment. It is an open environment. It is, because sometimes you find that let's pick a religion. Their religions are very orthodox, and there's no opening whatsoever to people in the LGBTQ community. But there are other churches that do open, and you find, I mean, I run every day past a church in Mokiltio that has like everybody's welcome here with the big pride flag. So it is that understanding of that openness and closeness, because one of the things that happen is that we tend to generalize, right? So religions, oh, they do not accept this. Religions, they do accept that. So we have nuances within those communities. So I would like to, and the work for us to develop the blueprint, I would like to understand more the parameters of these organizations to see those questions that I said. What took us to create that community? How did they create it? What obstacles did they have creating it? How do they promote or foster the community? Who are the members of the community? When do they gather and where? That kind of things that can tell us within our local or our geographic location that is also there, how things could vary. And because you and I are in two different continents, two different, well, it's still Western culture, but we are in two different environments. That will be really interesting because we can even compare the things that are there with the things that are here, right? So it just gives me more, having them segregated there, it gives me more um, gives me a platform to ask questions about going back to the 5W&H, about all the things that I want to know about those communities. Because I know some because I belong to a running community, and I have belonged to many, and I know which are open, which are snob, which are safe, which are too stressful. So it is that understanding of the same running community. You can find a lot of things that, yeah, I don't want to belong to this community even if I'm a hardcore runner, right? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's kind of that's the work that I see there.
Yeah, I think I put this sort of new bubble under green, but it might be that might be like part of this black essentially. Because that research around the practicalities of having different communities gather, I feel like applies to the people, the different communities specifically, and the the barriers that they might be facing.
Mm-hmm. Right, and again, when you start seeing now the green and the gray, and I brought a perfect example about the running community that I have belonged in the past and that I belong today, and you can see the barriers. What in that running community, what was there was underrepresentation? Was there exclusion? Was there people taking space, right? And I can answer all the questions right now about two different communities that are the same interest, the same affinity, but you can tell one from the other, and then you can say, I don't want to belong to this one. I want to belong to this one. So I really like it how it's coming together, because it's now you can see that intersection of the barriers with those areas of interest, and then with the humans that are going to help creating the blueprint.
Yeah, good. I'm still trying to think if there is, because it might be that all of these elements are not necessarily detailed at this level. And essentially, the contextual analysis is looking at different humans who are involved in building community and interweaving communities, looking at the different areas around which people gather, and looking at what barriers exist to people gathering.
Correct.
And then all the other
Correct.
elements are essentially just like a bit of noise, because they'll be just lower details, but they don't. I think sometimes that is at least for me, the difficulty of making sense of this like portion of translating the brainstorm into the structure is that not every single thing that we thought of needs to be part of the high level detail, because a lot of the things that come up during brainstorming are low level details that are captured in the process but don't necessarily belong in the high level structures that we create.
Yep.
All right. Do you have any thoughts around the remaining ones?
Around what?
The remaining categories, the purple or the blue?
And for the core values, I don't know if we may group them in type of values.
We'll try to think a bit higher level in just what this category means in terms of blueprint development.
Of the blueprint development. I think the work would be, as we have it in our value alignment process for our company, it would be to ensure that the foundation, the principles and the values that are the foundation of the blueprint that we want to develop are present. So as an objective, if we see it as an objective, it would be that, and then for the work will be, how do we ensure that all these different values are present and aligned with everything we do.
Okay.
And probably will be a couple of, I don't know, I was thinking of a couple of areas that were towards values and or toward type of values, and another that is about the community values, like for example collaboration, share understanding. I don't know, I'm trying to think if there are, and others would be like non-negotiables, trust, humility, that those kind of core values, like in a group and another group, it would be like the values that, not only ours, but the community. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think during our mapping, we had we sprinkled a lot of the values into essentially the blueprint output itself, which is in part what I'm trying to bring over to see if it makes sense to keep them grouped in the way that they were. Because I think it might help us also plug them in different areas in the same way.
And that's how we had it before.
Yeah, we have making space and value alignment as part of the blueprint itself process, like in that flow. If you, I don't know if you can see the map on the left side. I'm gonna bring it up on the screen.
Okay.
So we had essentially the bottom becomes the application of the blueprint itself. So we had it as there needs to be a level of shared understanding around a community that's gathered.
Yep.
Then making space, and then followed by, at some point, once there's been some organization, determination of group dynamics, then there needs to be some intentional sort of value alignment that allows this group or community to work together moving forward.
Yeah, and I'm really happy that you're showing this because Alejandra mentioned last week that we do this like in a continuous mode, right? So we are doing now 1 hour at a time every week, and we had a couple of weeks of vacation. So this portion that is on the screen right now, we have this grouping of this purple, and I had forgotten about it. But for some reason, because it made sense to us last week or 2 weeks ago, I think like, oh, I think that we should group this in some sort. So I'm glad that we are like on the same page with our own brains, because that's exactly what I was mentioning. So I'm glad that you brought it as we had it in the interconnections. That was when we finished the interconnections. I think was in episode 7. So yep, that's exactly my thought with this particular grouping. That is definitely going to be a very heavy objective, because it's key. It's key that we have that.
Do you see it as, so we'll definitely keep it as part of the blueprint sort of uh output, like reference it in the blueprint output. But do you think in terms of creating the work breakdown structure for ourselves and as a category here, how do you see that
I
work?
think so.
No, I'm keeping it. I'm just asking how you see that work in terms of, we have the blueprint development essentially, which is kind of planning and I validating the problem that we've identified. We have this contextual analysis that we're doing, and the blueprint itself that we're developing. How do you see the kind of work that we can do with the values? With
The kind of work would be, and let me know if this is what you're kind of looking for. The kind of work that I see is, one, like building a manifesto, if you will. I like that word. And two, doing like finding a way to measure our alignment, because words are cheap, right? We can say we are aligned, we are humble, but can we measure that? How do we really demonstrate that we are achieving that outcome? So I think it would be more like our creed, our manifesto. This is what we are establishing for this development, and this is the way how we measure that outcome.
Okay.
How do you?
So maybe these broader bubbles can essentially be the guide of like, this is how we are making space and this is how we're maintaining alignment.
Correct.
Cool.
And because we are project managers and we like metrics and we like KPIs, I would like, it's something like, it has to be something that is relatable to lay people. They don't have to be project professionals, because anybody can create a community as they want to, but that they could have some sort of measurement of success, being success. Yes, I created the community under my testament or my manifesto of the values that we wanted to have there.
Yeah, and I think for now this is more for our project, and then later we can tackle how we weave that into the blueprint itself, in order to make it both nuanced and broad at the same time.
Right. And because we're seeing this as a system, and we do it for ourselves, but it will have a repercussion in the development and the output, definitely, because then we are seeing higher than the blueprint output. So we can see what are musts, what are maybes, and what are like, it's negligible. something that really doesn't have to be in the operational reality, but it helps to build the operational reality.
Exactly. I think to simplify this, I'm going to delete sort of the extra ones. We know they're captured in the other map.
Okay. Why do you want to have them there to be consistent? Why don't you want to keep them there just to be consistent? Like we have the green and all that on the barriers.
Oh, just because I figured we would eventually like clean it up and it wouldn't have the green or the bit. Like that's what I was saying before when it's talking about the contextual analysis. Probably all of these under these three colors wouldn't be part of the final WBS, but I'll
Yeah, I was just saying, like at this step of this particular session, that nothing disappears like that. We have those bubbles within the making space, and for the value alignment. Yeah.
I feel like this.
Yeah, good input.
Because I do think essentially they're sort of internal barriers in the sense that
Correct.
they just exist. They might exist within the community. Are you moving stuff? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just so you have a little bit more room there.
No, I just didn't know if my computer was having a
acting
glitch.
Like a phantom, a ghost touching your mouse.
Yeah. Okay. I think we have a little bit of time, so we can go into the blue a little bit. I do have these two purple categories, just kind of, or purple elements, just kind of floating there. I think I'm going to include both global interconnection and shared understanding in making space. Lizzie, don't worry about the bubbles.
I know. I'm kind of... Okay, say that again about the two. Okay, you have, and that mutual aid support. I want to ask, why is that over there?
Sorry, give me
That
a
would be
second.
Wouldn't that be also making space? You want me to grab it?
No, because I mean, we had it under the blue in the other map that we did, and I don't necessarily think that it's going to be part of our project planning. So I do see it more as part of the blueprint output.
Okay, so
But
that we change the color.
sure.
I was okay. Yeah, and those two in the purple, I see them like on the same level. And then we have that broken down like you have it. And sometimes let me do something here for a minute. So just to this is what I meant, or, oh, I'm sorry. So if we have it here, it would be something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it would be with this. I'm sorry, I don't know.
It's
I
fine.
still.
Don't worry about it. I can fix the. I think if we focus a little bit on the blue, I think we can
Yeah.
just fix this after.
Yes, for the blue, I really like how they are grouped like separate levels. Because we did like the blue was very heavy in amount of elements, and we mentioned that if you have too many elements in one group or in one category, you should segregate the category back to the drawer with clothes, all the buttons and tops and underwear. Or if you have too many tops and too many buttons, you have a drawer for tops and a drawer for buttons. And if you have too many tops, you have a drawer for short sleeves and a drawer for long sleeves, whatever. So this is what we did. And I think that for the blue, that had too many bubbles if you see compared to the other elements or the other categories. So I think that already we have those groups that will be like the second level. I think the contextual analysis would be kind of key. Um, Here, something here.
I think
And
we
the
should keep
work
it.
would,
It's probably in the same order than it's in the map, where it goes from because we're talking about
right,
the start of the application, um, then conducting the contextual analysis,
correct.
getting buy-in. I think well maybe buy-in, yeah, getting buy-in after that. Um, which I don't know if buy-in ends up being its own um, category or on the
Um,
same.
I I think it would be part of the group logistics and operations because
Okay.
don't you think?
I think it needs to happen before, so I'm not sure. I think the difficulty with I know what you're trying to do with the levels, but I think the difficulty is then it just becomes like a very like a kilometric, just for the visual to try to capture it in the screen.
Mm-hmm.
It gets to be like really long.
Oh yeah, I understand.
But I
Yeah. So
do
you want it vertical?
no
We
no
can
no,
have it vertical.
I think it's fine. I think it's fine. I don't we have like 4 minutes, so I don't
Okay.
but I it was just the reason why I was keeping it vertical is because it was harder to keep it on the screen.
So I was just trying to help and I didn't help. Sorry.
No, you're good. I think if we can do, I think if we connect the blue, I think it'll finish the essentially the visual.
Yeah. And next week that we will continue, we will do the final cleanup. We will have it with the same, for at least for the second level, with the same symbols. so it doesn't get confusing. So like we have there the humans and the areas of interest and the barriers for yellow, green, and gray. We will have that symbol of a rectangle on that second level for vacant space and value alignment in the purple, and the 5 that we have right now for the blue outprint. We will have them so you can have a visual, and it's, you know, in your the visual is this is the third level of the WBS. And then I think that we will do a detail of one of the colors.
Yeah, because I think, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, so we will not finalize like all the levels for all the categories or objectives. We will have the final WBS, and then we may break one of the third levels into fourth and fifth if needed, so you can see how it's worked, how the process goes.
Yeah, because what we want to do, and I think probably next week we'll jump right into that, into trying to translate this into documentation, because I think that is one of the hardest parts of, or was always one of the hardest parts for me in terms of project planning, was the just like make a project plan. And I didn't really know how to do that. And part of our process is we start at the brainstorm and then we finish with a project charter. So part of what we want to do, and next week will be a good time to do that, is we'll look at the second level. So right now we have blueprint development, contextual analysis, core values, and blueprint output, and develop objectives around that and be able to show how this sort of messy, bubbly, colorful, brainstormed information then becomes a charter and a project plan that can guide the way to execution. So I think
Yes.
I will call it there.
Yeah, and this is what I wanted to mention, you know, like we have that, and then we, you know, that way we can see like all these levels will have the same symbology. So
perfect.
okay, let me, so you,
All right, so that is our final WBS, or at least as final as we're going to get for now. We never really finish the final work breakdown structure until after we charter the project, or at least I don't. So I think this is good enough to move into chartering the project, which is why I think next week we can delve into that. And then once we have a better idea and definition of the objectives, because that work can be difficult to translate this into words and verbs and actions, then from there a more clear sort of structure can come out of it. So with that being said, we'll continue next Tuesday, which will be June 16th, I believe. Tuesday, June 16th, same time, same place. For anyone looking for support with their specific idea, project, or strategy, we offer free office hours every week. The link to sign up is in the description. We are planning our first ipsicafé special event the second half of this year. And if you'd like to stay up to date on that, go ahead and follow our LinkedIn pages. That is all that I have for now. Lizzie, do you have anything to add?
no, thank you again for being here, and it always has been a pleasure to share this activity with all of you.
Wonderful. All right, everyone, get some rest y hasta la próxima. Ciao.
Bye bye.